Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be doing a clothing refashion today with some jeans, turning them into jean shorts, and a DIY gathered linen skirt. It's going to be beautiful. Let's go. What you're going to need is jeans, a pair of scissors, and a measuring tape. I measured the inseam to be 4 inches. That's just what I like on me. These are just some thrifted jeans that I had. I actually have a pair that looks very similar to this, so I knew I could easily turn them into a pair of shorts. Overall, I do like the look of them. They are a little bit tight for me, but hopefully with a little bit of working out, I can make them fit for summers to come. Here's the finished product. Let's move on to our DIY linen skirt. There's something about linen that I just love. It is so comfortable on my skin. It just lays so beautifully, and it's just a very, very cozy fabric. What I'm doing here is I'm just using a skirt that I had that no longer actually fits me, and I'm using it as a template to see how long I want to make the skirt. This one hits me right where I like it, so I just measured to 32 inches, and you cut 2 rectangles. My fabric is folded in half, so it'll be 64 inches. And I actually realized that I would have preferred to have it a little bit narrower, but I just sewed it as is. I'm cutting out the binding for the waistband. I used the same width of the fabric by 4 inches, factored in enough material for the inseams. Sewing my own clothes, it is something that I've been striving to do more of. With garment sewing, there's always this air of mystery, like, is my garment going to turn out? Is it going to fit the way that I hope it will? I just love that process. I love that mystery. I love creating something with my hands that I know and I hope will be beautiful and that I can wear for years to come. So there's also, what am I going to learn during this process? Because there's always something you can learn when it comes to garment sewing, and I can tell you that I've made so many mistakes when it comes to garment sewing. If you allow yourself the time and the space to make an error on one garment and make it better the next time, that's what I find is so rewarding and so interesting about garment sewing. That doesn't mean that every project turns out perfect, because it certainly does not. You don't have to start off with these big, beautiful projects. You can start very small, and honestly, it's just like a skill that is lost in our generation. The real premise here is just to get started, even if you don't know what you're doing. I can't tell you how many times I've spent watching other people's YouTube videos, watching them do their own clothing alterations, refashions, making their own clothes as well. It's just left me inspired to try and do it myself. So what I'm doing here is I'm sewing the side seams first with just a straight stitch. Next, I am sewing in gathered stitches, and how you do that is you lengthen your stitch length on your sewing machine, so you make it as far as it can go. Mine only goes up to 5, so I think that's typical. You want to make sure that you leave your threads long enough to where you can actually pull on them and hold them. The longer you are gathering them, the easier it is to keep track of your tail end threads, but you don't want to pull them out through the stitches. I found it was easiest as I slid my fingers across the both gather stitches, and then it eventually comes together. This is a time-consuming process, but I just kept saying over to myself, this is going to be so beautiful. I can't wait to wear this skirt. I hope it turns out. So now we're going to attach the waistband binding to the skirt. Pin in place. This part can be a little tricky when you are attaching the binding to the skirt. You need to make sure that you're checking where it's hitting on your binding and making sure it's actually sewing the binding to the fabric. A smart thing to do would have trimmed the skirt, but I just didn't do that. I knew my binding would hide it. Now we're going to press the waistband binding over in half with an iron. I forgot to seal my edge with a zigzag stitch, so that's what I'm going to be doing next. You can do that before you start sewing it to the skirt. I just happened to forget, so I'm going to do it now. Now it is okay if your binding doesn't cover your gather stitches. Mine doesn't obviously do that, so you just have to pick out the gathering stitches once you're done. Again, you want to be constantly checking that you are sewing your binding in the correct place so that the waistband is actually getting sewn to the skirt. I left a space for my elastic to get attached. I am loving this so far. Now we're going to be attaching some elastic to the skirt. This is actually a very easy process. You just need 2 pins, an elastic, and your skirt. When you're measuring for your elastic band, I actually just grabbed the elastic band that I had and I just wrapped it around my waist until it was a little bit snug, but not too snug, because elastic is so forgiving that you're able to make it a little bit shorter and it'll still fit you. One of the things that I do when I'm attaching elastic is I pin one side to the skirt so that I know it stays there, and then feed the other one through, and then once it's complete, then I won't be able to lose my elastic within the skirt, because that's happened to me before and it is such a buzzkill. Next, we're going to seal up the elastic by doing a zigzag stitch. Just go back and forth a few times until you feel like the zigzag stitch is secure. Then we will sew up the rest of the binding, and then we just have hemming to do. Lastly, when we are doing the hem, I made sure to do the zigzag stitch on the hemline so that it won't fall apart as we're sewing it together or later on down the line. I folded it over 1/4 inch first, and then I did about a 2-inch hemline, and I pressed that as well. Knew I wanted a thicker hemline because I just love the look of it, because I just love a big chunky hem. The real question, will I have enough bobbin thread to make it? I just have to hem the skirt. I had enough thread. I am pulling out my gather stitches. I seam ripped majority of it. And here is the beautiful finished product. I'm so happy with how this turned out. One thing that I wish I would have done a little bit better, which I mentioned earlier, is actually bring in the skirt a little bit more. It's a little bit bulky, but ultimately it'll be totally fine when I'm wearing it. Alright, so that concludes today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you. If it did, please give it a like, and I hope to see you in the next one. If you like this video, you'll probably like this one.